Higher Learning is a show about adults learning interesting facts while under the influence of marijuana. This show is filmed in Vermont, where it is legal to smoke. The staff involved in the show want to be clear that we do not support its use by those too young or where it is illegal to partake in such behavior. While this show doesn't show the usage of drugs or use coarse language, it is not intended for children. Parental discretion is advised. Now, let's get to the burning and learning. Welcome to Higher Learning, a class in disjointed education.
Indeed, indeed. Top of the morning.
Yeah, we're recording this on St. Patrick's Day.
And as you can tell, I'm green.
And we're not doing a St. Patrick's Day themed episode because it would make sense for the
because we were
quiz
late
to be.
And we didn't think about it. All right, that's why.
Anyway, instead, it's going to be 25 facts I'm going to teach him while he's sitting there high off his butt on edibles. And he is very high
on my
right
butt.
Now. About Mad Magazine, the cultural milestone that is Mad Magazine. He doesn't seem to realize just how big it was.
I mean, they're good.
By the end of this, I think he's going to realize it's a lot bigger than he thought. Anyway, Mad Magazine was published by EC Comics. It began as educational comics until Max Gain's son William took over as publisher. The EC was changed to entertaining comics, and they began making westerns, science fiction, romance, and horror, notably Tales from the Crypt.
I knew it.
Well, that you knew.
I recognized EC.
EC.
I know, EC.
I thought you said D.
No,
that was
Detective Comics.
Anyway, no one knows who came up with Alfred E. Neuman. Mad co-creator Harvey Kurtzman was discussing reprints for the publication when he noticed a grinning, gap-toothed imbecile staring at him on a bulletin board. The unnamed figure had already appeared in everything from dentist ads to depictions of diseases. Kurtzman adopted him as the Mad Magazine mascot in 1954, and nobody's used it outside of them since. They just adopted it.
It started
and
with
now
copyright infringement?
Yes.
And they're like,
and
yeah, we
just
copyright infringed it.
Yeah, they never denied it. They're like, we don't know who did it. And nobody's come forward.
It's like that guy who's
you know how much money someone would have been owed?
Student of mine who I stole The Hobbit from.
Basically. The magazine, this is the third thing. The magazine's editor started issuing apologies almost immediately. Publisher Bill Gaines, thought it would be funny to offer a fictional biography of himself detailing his father's communist leanings, his past as a dope dealer near nursery schools, and his bouts of pyromania. Wholesalers were shocked at the content and threatened to boycott all of the titles, so he was forced to write a letter of apology.
That's weak.
It would not be the last, by the way.
That is totally weak.
Alfred E. Neuman is so recognizable. A letter was delivered from New Zealand to Mad's New York offices with only an envelope with a drawing of Alfred on the outside. Someone drew Alfred E. Neuman's face, put a stamp on it in New Zealand, and it made it to New York and got to the Mad offices because they knew, obviously, this is what they mean. There was no words on it was just his face. You don't seem to understand how big this was. People in New Zealand knew where to send this thing based on a picture.
Other way around, but yeah.
No, delivered from New Zealand to New York.
So it was the people here that knew what to do with that picture.
Well, they had to know to send it to America. It didn't say U.S. on it. It just had his picture. Like, even in New Zealand, they knew where to send it. In 1960, Mad predicted John F. Kennedy's presidential election win. But it was a cheat.
Oh?
In the run-up to the 1960 election, they printed a cover with Neuman congratulating Kennedy on his victory and a caption that read, "We were with you all the way, Jack." But the issue was shipped before the votes had been tabulated. The secret? It was a double cover. You flip it over and he's celebrating Richard Nixon's appointment to office. Stores were just told to display the correct side of the magazine depending on the outcome.
I mean, that's a win.
That's amazing.
That's better than Madam President.
Well, because that didn't work out, did it? Alfred E. Neuman briefly had a girlfriend. The character's name was Moxie Kauzanovsky and was introduced in the late 50s as a female companion for Alfred. She made only a handful of cover appearances, possibly due to the fact that she looked like a female version of her significant other.
Okay. I'm going to put this out there right now. Next week, do not, for the love of all that is,
Ask you to say the name.
ask me to say that name, because I will get that question wrong, and it will be your fault.
I will form a different question. I wasn't going to have you do that. Believe it or not, I don't try to stumble.
I already don't remember her name.
Good. Number 7. Mad didn't run any ads for 44 years. From the beginning, Gaines felt that printing actual ads next to products they were lampooning would not only dilute their edge, but seem a little hypocritical. After some back and forth, Mad cut ads starting in 1957, because when it was a comic book they did. The decision was a costly one. Most print publications survive on this revenue, meaning like most of the magazines that still are on shelves is because
like
of ads.
90% of it is ads.
Right. Well, it's about 50-50 now, which is sad, but they never got there. That led to them keeping a sharp knife against the throat of seductive advertising, including cigarettes, who, when they started doing ads, they refused any cigarette ads because Bill Gaines was an anti-smoke, advocate. Like, I think he had a family member that had died of cancer, and he was huge against it. They have some great cigarette parody ads. In 2001, Mad relented and began taking ads to pay for the switch to full color.
Full color?
Yep. Spy vs. Spy was created by an actual suspected spy.
Oh, good.
Cuban cartoonist Antonio Prohías was, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but anyway, opposed Fidel Castro. Because his illustrations were critical of Castro, the Cuban government suspected him of working for the CIA. He wasn't, but that perception made him worried that harm would come to his coworkers. To get out of that, he came to America in 1960. With his daughter helping translate, he stopped in at New York offices of Mad and submitted his work. His sneaky triangle-headed spies became regulars of every issue from then on.
Oh, yeah.
And they had 2 comics in each one. One where the white one and one where the black one won. Not counting the gray girl that was in Spy vs. Spy vs. Spy. That was done once in a great while. Anyway, there was one Mad fold-in that they refused to run. Artist Al Jaffee had been with Mad from the beginning. He created the fold-in. The back cover reveals a new picture when folded in on itself, a parody of the fold-outs from National Geographic Playboy and Life. Jaffee had rarely missed an issue since, but editors backtracked when one of them referenced a mass shooting in 2013. Citing poor taste, they destroyed over 600,000 copies of that issue. They had a movie that was a disaster.
What's the point of being allowed to make fun of everything? Either everything's okay or nothing's okay.
Yes, but they decided it was poor taste because there was recently a school shooting, and they were like, dude.
I get it. It's sick.
Anyway, they made a movie, and it was a disaster. A 1980 military school spoof directed by Robert Downey Sr.
Whoa.
Titled Mad Presents Up the Academy was so bad, Bill Gaines demanded to have the name Mad removed from it. It was just renamed Up the Academy, but the DVD release of the movie still features someone sporting an Alfred E. Neuman mask. Mad parodied the movie, and their spoof was titled Throw Up the Academy.
Can you pass me that pen?
Yes. The April 1974 cover had people flipping out because they never had a habit of good taste. They depicted a raised middle finger for one mid-70s issue. Many stores wouldn't stock it because they didn't want to offend customers, and the company ended up accepting a bunch of returns more than they normally would. Gaines took his typewriter to write a letter of apology again. When they relaunched with a number 1 issue in 2018, they paid homage to it by having Neuman picking his nose with his middle finger. Mad invented an actual sport. You didn't know that, did you?
Basketball.
Nope. Mad writer Tom Koch was amused at the convoluted rules of a lot of sports, so he made one up. called it 43-Man Squamish. He invented it for the April 1965 issue. Him and the artist George Woodbridge, who called themselves Mad's Athletic Council, prepared a guide that was incomprehensible. The field would have 5 sides. Positions included deep brooders and dummies. Interfering with the wicket men constituted a penalty, but it amused high school and college readers enough to start their own games, kind of like they did with Harry Potter Quidditch. Like, people started playing this. Yeah. Anyway, listen. So they started playing their own games. Short on players, it said in the rules, try 2-man squamish. The rules are identical, except the object of the game is to lose. So 43, you're supposed to win. If you're down to 2, you're supposed to lose. That's the difference in rules. They also issued a board game in which the goal is to lose all of your money. It was like a parody of
Is that a separate
Monopoly.
fact or the same fact?
Same fact.
Okay.
Weird Al Yankovic was a guest editor. In what must be a fulfilled prophecy of some sort, lyrical satirist Weird Al Yankovic was named guest editor, their first, in May 2015. Yankovic told Entertainment Weekly Mad had put him on the dark, twisted path of becoming who he is today. I needed to pollute my mind with that kind of stuff. In addition, he enlisted Patton Oswalt, Seth Green, and Chris Hardwick to contribute to that issue.
Neat.
Fred Astaire once danced in an Alfred E. Neuman mask. In a scene too surreal for even Mad's editors to dream up, Fred Astaire sported an Alfred E. Neuman mask for a dance number in a TV special in 1959 called Another Evening with Fred Astaire. No one recalls why Astaire would do this. He may have just wanted to include a popular cultural reference, but it was no off-the-cuff decision. He hired movie makeup veteran John Chambers from Planet of the Apes to make the mask. The result is, well, disturbing looking, but it's a fitting tradition of people going completely mad for Mad.
That's awesome.
The first issue of Mad was actually titled Tales Calculated to Drive You Mad and retailed for 10 cents. Gaines printed 400,000 copies for its October-November 1952 launch and waited to get word from distributors on whether it was a hit. And it wasn't. It sold poorly, actually, and issues 2 and 3 were also met with lukewarm reception. Next fact. Kurtzman, the editor, decided that if they were going to parody comics, they needed to set their sights on the biggest, most indestructible target possible, Superman. A satire called Super Duper Man ran in the 4th issue and was significant for 2 reasons. Mocking DC's hero created a word of mouth with readers and led to more sales. And it also led to DC, known as National Comics Publications at the time, sending a strongly worded legal letter demanding they stop mocking their character. Did Mad comply? It did not. Did Mad get more legal letters telling them to stop? It did. In 1954, a book titled Seduction of the Innocent, written by anti-comics crusader Dr. Frederick Wortham, hit stores, claiming comic books caused juvenile delinquency. The result was a congressional investigation and a voluntary set of guidelines adopted for something called the Comics Code Authority. It prohibited sex, drugs, crime, depravity, lust, monsters, and vampires, and anything that promoted disrespect to the established authority, something that Tales Calculated to Drive You Mad was known to do regularly. But there was a loophole. The CCA covered comic books, so Tales Calculated to Drive You Mad got a makeover and Mad Magazine was born. Number 18. In 1961, Mad made copyright history when music publishers representing songwriters Cole Porter, Richard Rodgers, and Irving Berlin sued the magazine. The issue? They had put out a songbook of parodies that included words with the instruction that they could be sung to the tune of specific songs. The musicians claimed only the original authors could legally parody their own songs. That was dismissed by judges all the way to the Supreme Court. They're like, no. The magazine's mascot went unnamed until a staff member noticed the name Alfred Neuman in the credits of a movie. That Neuman was a film composer. Oh, and by the way, he's the uncle of Randy Newman.
Oh.
So Alfred E. Neuman was named after Randy Newman's uncle. Hoping
and Alfred E. Neuman is a short person.
Hoping to prevent a lawsuit, the staff changed the spelling of his last name and added the E. This last few, I got 5 more. With the exception of Fox's sketch series, Mad TV, most attempts to translate it into other media were underwhelming. A 1974 animated special didn't even make it onto air. It is on YouTube, though. I watched it recently. It's basically just an issue of Mad Magazine, article by article. It really is. Like, I've seen every bit of it because it came directly from the magazine. They just animated it. Mad inspired so many imitators. I told you about this, that there was a lot of them, but I didn't tell you this part. Founder-publisher Bill Gaines had a voodoo doll for each competitor, labeled with a pin that was only removed when the imitator stopped publishing. Most were short-lived. Some titles include Cracked, Sick, Nuts, Crazy, Whack, Riot, Flip, and Madhouse. And I believe it was Sick that said they said we are the #1 Mad Magazine ripoff. Like, that was...
Well, here's the thing. Cracked is still going.
Well, by the time of his death in 92, only one pin remained, representing Cracked, founded in 1958. It stopped publishing in 2007, but still exists as a website.
Yeah.
Artist Sergio Argone has contributed more than 12,000 wordless gags running in the margins and blank spaces of the magazine. Once called the world's fastest cartoonist, his art appeared in every issue since 1963, except for one in 1964 because his drawings were lost in the mail.
Ooh.
Alfred E. Neuman has appeared outside of Mad Magazine since becoming their mascot, making especially noticeable guest appearances in one episode of a Peanuts comic strip where his face was in the sun, as well as appearances on The Simpsons, in Beetle Bailey, and he is canon to Superman comics. He appeared in Superman, which is ironic because of the earlier thing. An off-Broadway musical review, The Mad Show, based on the magazine, opened in 1966 and ran for 871 performances, almost 3 years.
Yep.
Linda Lavin, Paul Sand, and Joanne Worley were all part of the original cast. Somehow, it did not start a trend of off-Broadway musicals based on magazines.
Well, that's unfortunate.
And number 25.
What about the magazine?
Hello, this is the last fact. You going to shut your mouth?
No.
It's been going a little long. Mad's first film spoof was called Ping Pong in issue 6, a parody of King Kong.
Ah,
And
Ping Pong.
That is 25 long facts. Next week, he'll come in sober, and we're going to see when he takes the quiz on the 25 questions I'm going to form about these facts, if he's going to puff, puff, pass.
Or puff, puff, fail.